各位傳媒朋友
Good afternoon. Welcome to this joint press conference on the Super Typhoon Saola. We have the Chief Secretary from Administration, Mr. Eric Chen, Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration, Mr. Warner Chuck, Mr. Michael Chuck, Acting Secretary for Security, Dr. Chen Parkway, Director of the Hong Kong Observatory, Ms. Clarice Yu, Director of Buildings, Ms. Palace Pang, Director of Drainage Services, Ms. Helen, Ms. Angela Lee, Commissioner of Transport, Mr. Jimmy Chan, Director of Highways, and Mr. Wang Chang, Deputy Director of Fire Services, and Ms. Cassie Ng from the Development Bureau of Tree Management Section. So each government representative will first tell you about the preparation they've made, and then the floor will be open to questions. Without further ado, let's start with the Chief Secretary of Administration. Good afternoon, members of the public and the media. First, welcome to this joint press conference. As the Chief Executive announced in his social media platform, now Super Typhoon Saola is edging closer to Hong Kong. And this morning, I convened the interdepartmental steering committee to make sure that all relevant departments have made full preparation and contingency plans, because Saola may bring about serious threat to Hong Kong. For the departments involved in the steering committee, there are 20 departments. I'm the coordinator. I'm the chair, and then the Secretary for Security is responsible for coordinating the work of the departments. At the meeting, we heard the latest assessment from the Hong Kong Observatory about Saola. Now, Saola will be closer to Hong Kong still tomorrow morning. According to the Hong Kong Observatory, tomorrow, that is the 1st of September, between 2 and 5 a.m., the typhoon signal number 8 will be hoisted. So tomorrow, let me repeat, tomorrow, on the 1st of September, between 2 and 5 a.m., typhoon number 8 signal will be hoisted, and it will remain in effect for some time. We want to ensure the safety of members of the public and students. So I would like to make an early announcement here. All schools, including primary schools, secondary schools, special schools, kindergartens, childcare centers, kindergartens, will all see classes suspended tomorrow. The Education Bureau will be sending out email messages to all schools in Hong Kong, informing them of the detailed arrangement. The Bureau will also keep in close contact with schools to offer assistance as necessary. And also here, I would like to remind all employers to make advanced work arrangements with their staff as a result of the typhoon. That is when they should resume work, or whether they should work from home, and so on. And also they should put first and foremost the safety of their employees. Employers have to be understanding about the circumstances of individual employees. They should make flexible and reasonable work arrangements. If it is necessary to arrange for employees to come back to work during inclement weather, the employer should make sure there is proper arrangement for the rest, transportation, meals, and so on. And in terms of coordination, I will make sure that all departments are properly prepared, and they cover several aspects. First of all, the Security Bureau will activate the Emergency Monitoring and Support Center under its charge. It will monitor the situation in the community, and also it will receive real-time information for all departments, so it could make rapid assessment and come up with some proper responses. That's the first one. Secondly, the Transport Department will activate the Emergency Transport Coordination Center. And then all government departments and public transport operators will keep in close contact, and then they will attend to emergency incidents during the typhoon. Thirdly, all relevant departments have to remain on a high alert. They have to make full assessment and prepare contingency plans. In terms of manpower and equipment, they need to make early preparation. For example, there should be government department and contractor staff who are on standby, especially at places that may be vulnerable to flooding and so on. For example, Tai Po, Lei Yun Mun, Tolo Harbor, Sha Tin, Hang Fa Chun, and so on. All relevant departments have actually started precautionary measures. And in low-lying areas with high flooding risks, relevant departments have started preparation for evacuating residents. Fourthly, the Home Affairs Department will open up a number of temporary shelters early tonight for those who need to go into the shelters. As for the community care teams and volunteers, during the operation of these temporary shelters, they will send staff there to give assistance. Also, the Home Affairs Department will work through the various ethnic minority support centers so as to remind ethnic minority residents about the latest observatory news and make all necessary precautions against the typhoon. Fifthly, all relevant departments have to be well prepared in advance for any follow-up work after the typhoon. For example, for major trunk roads, roads linking to bus depots and so on, there have to be a full list of all such road sections so that during the typhoon, we can come up with the priority for clearing up roads immediately after the typhoon. If there's any obstruction in any road, we want to act as swiftly as possible to open up the roads again. We want to make sure that public transport services could resume normal as soon as possible. Sixthly, the hospital authority will be stepping up its manpower to make sure the emergency services are not affected. They will also have adequate manpower to deal with emergencies, and all services of accident and emergency departments will be maintained. Now, because of the typhoon, there may be 20% more doctors being stationed at hospitals. So that means there will be more manpower that could be deployed than usual. Seventhly, all policy bureau and departments must make sure that they are on high alert with staff that need to stay on rosters. So they have to pay close attention to latest news about the typhoon, and they have to prepare for the worst possible scenarios. In a moment, I'm going to invite the different departments represented here to tell you about the preparation that they have done and also any response plans they have drawn up, as well as follow-up action they may take. All government departments will certainly make sure that they're fully prepared in response to the Super Typhoon Saola. And I head the steering committee, and together with the Emergency Monitoring and Support Center, we will watch closely the trajectory of Saola. We will make sure that all relevant departments have made full preparation and could respond to any emergencies. We have only one goal, that is to protect the life and safety of the public and also the properties of the public. Here I must appeal to the public to take all necessary precautionary measures. Don't take this lightly. And I must also appeal to the public that during the typhoon, you should stay home, stay safe. Don't try to go and watch typhoons by the seaside. These are dangerous acts, and you don't just endanger your own lives, you also endanger the lives of the rescuing teams. So please pay attention to the latest news announced by the government. Please work together with the government and support our efforts. We hope that this typhoon will have minimal impact on Hong Kong. Thank you.
Next, the Director of Hong Kong Observatory. Good evening. First, I'll talk about the forecast of Saola. As you can see here on the right, that is at 12 p.m. Hong Kong time. This is the satellite image. It's quite a mature typhoon. It is now a super typhoon. You can see that the clouds are packed closely together. So for Hong Kong, the impact would depend on the distance between it and Hong Kong. The forecast track is shown on the left. It will move towards a northwesterly direction, going to Guangdong, moving from east to west along the coast of Guangdong. The time that it will be closest to Hong Kong would be late evening on 1st of September to early hours of 2nd February. It will be quite close to Hong Kong of September, excuse me. So it will be a super typhoon when it passes Hong Kong. When it is west of Hong Kong, it will weaken to typhoon. As the Chief Secretary said earlier, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. tomorrow, we will hoist the typhoon signal number 8. As Saola moves closer, there will be frequent heavy squally showers. So I call for the public to take precautionary measures. Seas will be high with swells, so the public should stay away from the seas. Apart from bringing about heavy winds and heavy squally showers, Saola will also cause storm surge. As I said earlier, between the 1st and the 2nd, Saola will be the closest to Hong Kong. And in the evening of Friday to noon of 2nd of September, there will be a rise in sea levels. There may be heavy flooding in low-lying coastal areas. Of course, it depends on the intensity and location of Saola when it passes Hong Kong. So according to our forecast track, it is quite close to Hong Kong. It will be south of Hong Kong. The storm surge situation may be the same as that in 2018 when Mankhut hit Hong Kong. If Saola makes landfall to the east of Hong Kong, close to Shenzhen, and moves north of Hong Kong, the storm surge will be of a smaller scale. However, right now we're forecasting that it will move past Hong Kong, south of Hong Kong. Now, according to our forecast track and intensity, we have made estimations for storm surge for the risky areas such as Tolo Harbor, Victoria Harbor, and Tai O. The highest tide levels have also been set out here. And close to midnight on 1st of September in Tolo Harbor, that will be the highest. That is 5 meters above chart datum. It's like the situation with Wanda. For Victoria Harbor, that is before noon of 2nd of September, the level will be 3 to 3.5 meters above chart datum. It's slightly lower than that of the levels recorded in Wanda. For Tai O, again, it will record the highest level before noon on the 2nd. It's 3.5 to 3.8 meters above chart datum. It's similar to the situation when Hato hit Hong Kong. So on 2nd of September, it will move close to Hong Kong, and on 3rd of September, it will be moving away from Hong Kong. Even when the winds will weaken, there will still be showers. That's it for what I have to say. Next, acting security for security. Now the emergency teams are ready for this super typhoon. If the EMSC has been activated in the past, and now the Fire Services Department and Civil Aid Service has gone to low-lying coastal areas such as Tai O to help out the residents, and will continue to help them. For additional manpower, the police in the next 2 days will reserve another 1,450 officers for frontline deployment, and the FSD will reserve another 300 people and 20 fire trucks for deployment, and the CAS has deployed 300 volunteers to be on duty for emergency operations and rescue work and the work of shelters. I call for the public to make appropriate use of 999, because during the storms before, the 999 hotline would often receive non-emergency calls such as broken windows or pipe leakage at home. The 999 hotline is for people who have emergency needs. In past experience, we have deployed additional officers for the 999 hotline, but we call for the public to make appropriate use of the hotline. Also, as the director of observatory said, the storm surge would be of a similar level as before. There may be flooding, especially in low-lying coastal areas such as underground car parks. It can get quite dangerous, so car owners shouldn't try to rescue their cars. Leave the premises as soon as possible. That's it for what I have to say. Thank you. Next, the acting director for fire services. The department will continue to liaise with other departments and the EMSC to act accordingly for the Super Typhoon. We will raise our alert to have all of our staff members on alert. All daily routine training will be cancelled, and all supervisory officers will go back to their respective units. So frontline officers and equipment will be ready. If necessary, they will be deployed to the front line. We have also ensured that all fire trucks and ambulances and equipment are functioning normally. They have also been deployed to strategic locations. In the next few days, we'll plan for what may happen during the Super Typhoon. As the Chief Secretary said, we will have officers from different units, approximately 300 of them, to support frontline emergency operations. We'll also have special medical teams and 20 additional ambulances on standby. If necessary, we can enhance our ambulance services. Our communications center will also make plans accordingly and have more personnel take up calls to respond to emergency calls made by the public. We have already helped certain residents take precautionary measures. After the typhoon passes, drawing from past experience, we'll also have dedicated teams to liaise with other departments, especially in response to felling trees or blockages in roads, to remove the fallen trees and allow roads to operate again. The FSD would also like to make a call to the public, because the typhoon will bring inclement weather to Hong Kong. Members of the public should take precautionary measures. Citizens should also stay indoors and not conduct any activities outdoors. This is a call from the Fire Services Department. Thank you.
Director of Drainage Services. the Drainage Services Department has mobilized resources to step up the drainage clearance work before typhoon. We've also inspected river courses and so to make sure there is no obstruction. And at relevant locations, we have put in place relevant measures such as setting up the flood barriers, sandbags, and water pumps to reduce the risk of flooding. And then we have our emergency response center is all ready to be activated. We're deploying extra resources to flood-prone locations in Hong Kong. And then we are also carrying out emergency clearance of obstruction at relevant drains. And then we also have emergency response teams to deal with flooding reports and also carry out emergency clearance of obstructed drains. And we appeal to the public to take all precautionary measures against flooding and strong winds. Please do not remove any objects so they won't block drains. And if there's any signs of flooding, please leave. And also please stay far away from river courses. If you spot any flooding, please call our 24-hour hotline 23001110. Thank you. Director of Highways. The Highways Department has put in place a series of emergency response measures. We have directed our road maintenance contractors to put in place typhoon precautionary measures. The contractors have mobilized the necessary manpower and arranged for mechanical equipment such as skippers and so on, and grabbers so that they are on standby to clear obstructed roads whenever necessary. Also, we have cleared the drains and lower lying areas and in tunnels and underpasses. Now, the sea level may rise in certain locations, so for some of the underpasses with flooding risks, they will be closed. And then 2 hours before the hoisting of the Typhoon number 8 signal, our emergency center will be activated. We will closely monitor road condition and also make response to emergency incidents on public roads. We will also carry out emergency repairs to make sure roads are kept open as far as possible. And then before the hoisting of the signal number 3, we will have our teams ready to clear obstructed roads due to fallen trees and so on, so that traffic could resume normal as soon as possible. Now on tree management. Now, as Typhoon Saola is edging closer to Hong Kong, so the Development Bureau has on Tuesday asked all tree management departments to prune trees, stabilize trees, and remove dead branches and so on. This is to reduce the risk of fallen trees. If it's not possible to complete all such tree protection work, they should enclose trees or cordon off the areas to ensure safety. And then the Tree Management Office has also reminded all private owners and property management companies to take precautionary measures on trees under their management. And then after a typhoon, there are usually two types of tasks for us. First is for us to remove fallen trees that are obstructing roads. So we'll try to remove them as soon as possible. This is to make sure that we could allow roads and pedestrian pavements to be opened up again as soon as possible. Now, we've learned from past experience. Say if there is a large number of fallen trees, then it will take time to remove all the trees. The Development Bureau will coordinate all the relevant departments and will focus our resources and manpower to deal with the large number of fallen tree cases. And also the Highways Department will set priorities in clearing up roads. Now, from past experience, if there should be a large number of fallen trees, and we may not be able to deal with all of them at the same time, then we'll need places to keep the removed trees temporarily. And then we have already set up 5 such temporary storage locations for fallen trees. And also, there is another important task apart from handling fallen trees. That is, after the typhoon, all relevant tree management units will inspect the trees under their management. Say if there are trees or branches that may fall, they will remove them. Thank you. Director of Buildings. Thank you. Yeah, because of the Super Typhoon, we have also activated our emergency response plan. That we have inspected construction sites that are active. We have reminded them to take precautionary measures. They have to put away their building materials properly. They have to check their scaffoldings and gondolas and so on are safe. As for other private construction sites, we have sent them email circulars reminding registered contractors and authorized persons to check that everything is safe on site. And then we have also checked the external walls of buildings on main roads to make sure if to check if there are any dilapidated signboards. So we have asked our contractors to remove such signboards. We've also sent emails to remind property management companies to take proper precautionary measures. For example, they should inspect the drainage system of the building. They have to check the external walls, the scaffoldings, or if there are gondolas and sideboards, they have to make sure these are stable and properly stowed away. And then we have an emergency control centers. There will be technical staff and professionals on duty to handle emergency cases. After the typhoon, the buildings department will mount a large-scale operation to inspect all major roads to see if there are signs that are becoming loose or whether there are loose scaffoldings and so on. If maybe there's damage to certain buildings and there is a safety threat, and if the owners of the buildings are not able to follow up on such cases at once, then we will ask our contractors to handle the cases at once. We'll also inspect the construction sites again to remind contractors and the registered professionals to check that the scaffoldings and everything are safe. Commissioner of Transport. Well, the Transport Department has made all necessary preparations to coordinate traffic and transport services during the typhoon. Before the hoisting of the typhoon of the number 8 signal, we will activate our emergency transport coordination center, and then we will keep in close liaison with all public transport operators and so on. And then through the radio, TV, and our website, as well as the mobile app Hong Kong e-mobility, we will disseminate the latest traffic and transport information to the public. So please pay attention to that. Actually, after the Super Typhoon Mangkhut in 2018, we have added additional CCTVs to monitor road conditions, so we could then assess the impact of the typhoon on our road network. There are now over 1,900 CCTVs covering all main trunk roads, tunnels, and bridges. We have also reviewed our list of roads. We have identified which roads are trunk roads or roads that link to bus depot or to railway depots. And then we have also identified roads without alternatives. So then we could therefore accord priorities to roads for clearing up any obstruction. And then departments could coordinate their effort, and they could deploy their staff accordingly to clear up the obstructed roads. And then these roads could be opened up to traffic again as soon as possible. And then public transport services could resume to normal as soon as possible. Now, buses and MTR are the most popular mode of transport. So when the number 8 signal comes down, then we require the public transport operators to assess the service situation as soon as possible. For example, bus operators need to check that the trunk roads are free of obstruction. They could start resuming services as soon as possible. The transport department will disseminate information to the public at the first instance on resumption of public transport services. Next, the Director of Home Affairs.
As Saola edges closer to Hong Kong, the Home Affairs Department and district offices have started our preparations early this week. For example, we have arranged for inspections of flooding black spots and have arranged for contractors to clear the debris in drainage channels. We've also liaised with owners, corporations, property management companies, and in the new territories, rural committees, and so on, to remind them to help residents and villagers to take precautionary measures. And during the hoisting of the Typhoon Signal number 8, we'll also have temporary shelters for the 2 districts that have care teams, that is Southern District and Tsuen Wan care teams, have visited certain residents in the district, such as singleton elderly persons, to make sure they have taken the right precautionary measures. For the flooding black spots, in the past 2 days, we have been working with other departments and organizations to take precautionary measures, such as in Tai O yesterday. We have set up in multiple locations demountable flood barriers, and we have also worked with NGOs to visit residents and take precautionary measures, such as moving furniture and electronics to an elevated level. And the FSD have also installed sandbags in the right locations. We have also provided sandbags to residents to be placed in the locations that they find appropriate. And in Hang Fa Chun, in the afternoon, flood barriers have been installed. And in the car parks in Hang Fa Chun, we have also tested the equipment to test the water levels in those locations. We have also coordinated with other departments such as To Ao Chun and Wan Chun. We have also distributed sandbags to residents. During the typhoon, we have set up a hotline to be operated on a 24-hour basis for the public to make inquiries. We will also implement the following measures. For example, at 8 p.m. today, we'll open the temporary shelters across Hong Kong. Before, we will only open such temporary shelters after the Typhoon Signal number 8 is hoisted, and now we have made such arrangements in advance. And while the temporary shelters are open, we'll have care team members or volunteers go to the temporary shelters to assist in their operations. The HAD also has an ethnic minority support center. We have these 8 centers remind ethnic minorities to look at the latest announcements by the observatory and take precautionary measures. After the typhoon passes, the district offices will liaise with other departments and organizations to remove any potential obstruction, as said earlier, such as fallen trees or any debris in drainage channels. We'll also have care teams liaise with affected residents to see if they need any shelters or other needs. That's it for me. Thank you. Now it's the Q&A session for friends of the media who wish to ask questions. Please raise your hands, and before you ask your questions, please say your organization. The female journalist in the front. I'm from K-POW. So Saola is kind of like Mankud. Before it was said that people should stop working, and does the government have plans to stop people from working? And would you have the emergency messaging system remind members of the public that to take precautionary measures? I also want to know how many officers or contractors are deployed. Is it the larger scale from before? How can you ensure that staff members of the contractors can commute to work safely? Thank you. Well, as you heard earlier from the director of the observatory, this can be a very destructive typhoon. So you can see that many departments have mobilized and have made preparations in advance. We've also informed the public in advance that we'll hoist the typhoon signal number 8 in the small hours of tomorrow. We hope to minimize the damage caused by the typhoon. We wish to make preparations in advance. That's what we are trying to do. In 2019, we've set up a mechanism for a resumption of work after typhoon. That is the extreme conditions announcement. We'll definitely monitor the situation. If the typhoon causes extreme impact on Hong Kong, just like last time, even though it was already typhoon signal number 3, because many fallen trees had yet to be cleared away, the roads could not be open and people could not go to work. And this time we have made preparations in advance. We have law enforcement departments and emergency teams acquire equipment and have made preparations in advance to clear away such obstructions. If such does happen, we will make timely announcements, and based on the mechanism, if we have made announcements on that people do not have to go to work, we'll make 2-hourly announcements to inform the public. But of course, we do not want this to happen. That's why we're making preparations in advance. As you heard earlier, many departments have done prior preparations. I can't say how many officers have been deployed, but we have definitely mobilized all civil servants to be on standby, and if necessary, they can be mobilized. So they will be on standby. Of course, the government has made various preparations. We hope to protect citizens and to make sure their property is protected as well. But citizens have to work with us as departments called for the public to work with us. I hope friends of media can mention this in your reporting as well. And I think that is going to be very beneficial, because often before in the news reports, we would see people going outside to experience a typhoon. But I would like to say this is not different, because this is of a larger scale than ever before. Apart from endangering their lives, it also causes a burden on our rescue personnel that is unnecessary. So, friends of media, please make such calls for us. Thank you.
Sorry, speaker's not coming through. The Deputy Chief Secretary will take the question. You talk about sending out the short messages. That means the emergency alert system. The emergency alert system is for government departments to issue short messages in unforeseen but emergency situations which may pose a threat to the life and property of the public. And so such short messages are sent out. As you know, we have actually made the announcement that between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. later tonight, the number 8 signal will be hoisted. So people are aware, therefore, there will be the number 8 typhoon signal. So there is no need to, therefore, go through this emergency alert system to remind people through their mobile phones. Next, please. The gentleman without glasses with light hair in the front. I'm from Ming Pao. Is there a chance of hoisting the number 10 signal? And how long will the number 8 signal last? Because people may have to go to work or school on Monday, so people could be prepared. If you could announce your projection. And what if, say, the road system and the public transport system is not yet back to normal on Monday, like what happened with Typhoon Mangkhut? There was a huge chaos. So what would be your response? Now, some lawyers have suggested resorting to the emergency order for people to suspend work in a similar case like Typhoon Mangkhut. Would you be doing that this time? Another from making appeals is nothing else that you can do. First, about the emergency ordinance, and then the observatory will talk about the typhoon. The Commissioner of Transport could also say something. Thank you. Now, everything we do in advance this time. Last time we learned from the experience of Typhoon Mangkhut. So for all our departments, we have enhanced our manpower and equipment. Therefore, we don't wish to see something similar to what happened during Typhoon Mangkhut. But if there should be extreme cases, then there is a work resumption arrangement after the typhoon. Now, I oversee a committee that will look at the situation such as the traffic situation and so on. If the circumstances prevailing lead us to believe that it's difficult for members of the public to go to work, then we will make the right announcement. But then this time round, we are all prepared well in advance, so we don't expect that to happen. There's not much likelihood for that. Director of the Hong Kong Observatory. Well, the chance of hoisting the number 10 signal. Now, from tomorrow night until early Saturday morning, the typhoon will be closest to Hong Kong according to our projection. And we already said that the winds will approach strong winds level at on high grounds. In that case, there may be a need to hoist the number 10 signal. But of course, it really depends on the track of Typhoon Saola, whether it will be really close to Hong Kong and it will pass by Hong Kong on the south. And we'll also see if it will intensify. And then on Saturday, as the Saola starts to leave Hong Kong, then winds will become weaker. So we expect the number 8 signal to be in effect for some time on Saturday, but then later on Saturday, winds will become weaker. And then by Sunday, the typhoon should have left Hong Kong altogether. Now, on the road condition and traffic condition, well, we closely monitor the road condition. If there is need to clear obstruction from roads, we have to accord priorities to different roads. And then all departments are all prepared and ready to carry out such clearance operations. So under the leadership of the Chief Secretary for Administration, we will closely monitor the typhoon situation and we'll see if there are any extreme circumstances. We don't want there to be a problem still on Monday, so we will keep monitoring the situation and respond accordingly. Next, please. At the back, the lady in spectacles.
South China Morning Post. As the government have just mentioned that residents may not need to go back to work in case if there are some worst case scenarios happening. So how would you define the worst case scenario, and what are the extreme situations that the government will consider a work stoppage in the situation? And is there a high chance of issuing a typhoon signal number 10 in the coming few days? The third question is about, will there be a need to evacuate the people in the flood-prone areas, such as Tai O and Lei Yu Mun, etc.? Thank you.
I think the evacuation work is now in progress. Our staff has already started the work. And then for extreme case, it means that under that circumstances, members of the public are not able to go back to their workplace due to whatever reason, worse, very bad weather condition or very bad traffic condition. And I hope that under such situation, the employer should be more accommodating to their staff, because they need to ensure that their staff, their employees are safe if they are required to work during the bad weather condition.
And Director of the Hong Kong Know. Okay, about the typhoon signal number 10, as I just mentioned, the tropical cyclone will be closest to Hong Kong later on Friday and early on Saturday. In fact, in our weather forecast, we already forecast that hurricane force winds are possible over offshore waters and on high ground. If that really happened, then the issuance of typhoon signal number 10 is possible. But then all these are still will still be depending on whether the typhoon is really moving according to the forecast track and also its intensity change.
好，下一位記者嘅提問。
Next, please. The lady in, or the gentleman next to the lady in red. Yes, I'm from Hong Kong Economic Times. I have two questions. There are many old buildings in poor condition. Just now, the buildings department said that it's inspected some signboards and external walls of buildings. Did you identify any high-risk buildings? Because we've seen collapse of concrete slabs recently. So what would be the risk level of these buildings during typhoon? And have you done any assessment for the public? Now, how destructive would this typhoon be like compared to, say, the Super Typhoons Hector and Menquat? Director of Observatory and then the Director of Buildings. Well, on how destructive the typhoon will be, it really depends on how close it will get to Hong Kong and also whether it will intensify. Now, our forecast is that at certain locations, there will be the wind would reach a hurricane level, and for Super Typhoon Menquat, it reached that level too, and so there's a serious destruction. And also, we have shown you a table just now. In certain locations, it's possible that there will be storm surges level that reached historic levels. Director of Buildings. Old buildings. Well, yes, we've seen cases of falling of concrete slabs in old buildings. It's because it's in a state of disrepair. And during typhoon, we may see similar incidents. So that's why we appeal to the public to stay indoor and take all necessary precautionary measures. In the past few days, our inspection focused on the condition of signboards. As for the condition of buildings, when we receive reports, we'll follow up. Two more questions, perhaps. The lady at the back.
你好，星
Hi, I'm from Singtel. I first want to ask the director of observatory. I can see that the observatory has made frequent announcements in the past few days, but members of the public weren't aware that this typhoon could be so destructive. Did you underestimate the typhoon? And would you follow the arrangement on this occasion, making prior announcements of hoisting of signal number 8? Also, it was said that care teams would be going to temporary shelters because they are not employees. Would you acquire insurance for them? How will they be protected without insurance? Also, it was said that it's kind of like the level of Wanda or Hato. Have you considered evacuating residents of Tai O or low-lying coastal areas? Hello? We have always been assessing the impact of Saola. We never underestimated it. However, there were many different factors affecting its intensity because it is affected by another typhoon, Haikui. And now that it's early autumn, there's easterly monsoons affecting the forecast track of the typhoon. We have been making continuous assessment and have been informing the public as soon as possible. As you can see here, we have been making prior announcements before the hoisting of typhoon signal number 1, 3, and now number 8. I also want people to understand that this is weather forecast. There may be changes. So for the observatory, they have to give an accurate forecast. Of course, they can make early forecasts 3 or 4 days in advance, but of course, it may not be as accurate as we want. So the director is saying that the accuracy now is quite high because now that it's closer to Hong Kong, that's why we have made preparations in advance. If the typhoon does not directly hit Hong Kong, of course, we'll breathe a sigh of relief. But we want to be prepared in advance because we want to make sure members of public are on alert. We have told members of the public that early on, so even if weather conditions get bad tomorrow, then members of the public will be prepared. Now, Director of Home Affairs, well, for care teams, we have asked the organizations to purchase insurance for their employees so their work package would be the same in times of typhoon. It was said that evacuation is ongoing or has been performed, and typhoon shelters are going to start their operations at 8 p.m. today, and citizens can go there earlier instead of waiting until the small hours. Also, for the electronics and furniture, we have helped the Tai O residents to elevate these to a higher level, and then we'll help them lowering such items back to the ground level once the typhoon passes. And we have started with these at this moment. The speaker is not coming through. There are such shelters in all 18 districts, 27 of them, and we'll have a list later. We'll take the last question. The one in the front row, female, light top, wearing glasses. Hello, I'm from TVB. For the Saola's forecast track, it is to pass along the coast. It was said that storm surge would be caused by Saola. There may even be an astronomical tide. How much more will it rise in terms of sea levels? director of observatory, please. Because according to our forecast, it is going to get quite close to Hong Kong. The wind speed across Hong Kong will be quite high. For coastal areas, they may have an even higher wind speed. And for tide levels, the rise in tide levels will be close to historic levels. If Saola moves according to our forecast track, the storm surge situation will be similar to that of Manquat. That's it for today's press conference. Thank you.